and conditionals. Okay, so we have about 10 questions that we are going to be looking at, and I'm just hoping that you had a chance to look at the questions that we have. So in here, we are going to start with the very first question here, requiring us to basically it's we are going to check on even or odd numbers. All right. So again, even before we proceed with the question, you at least need to understand what an even number is and what an odd number is. Okay. So the requirement of this question is that we should write a program, that is a Python program, that checks if a given number is even or odd. And again, we are using conditional statements. All right. So we are going to get this number from the user, and we can assign it to a variable named num. Okay. Then remember what we do with inputs, especially when we are expecting to get a number, and in this case an integer. So we talk about int so that we cast whatever is coming into an integer. All right. Then we have input. Then we can request the user to enter a number. All right. So in here, we are going to receive a number as a string, and then it's going to be converted to an integer. Okay. So again, we want to check if this number is an even number or an odd number. Okay. So if we remember, we said an even number is a number that is divisible by 2. Okay. And that is you divide that number by 2, you don't get a remainder. Okay. On the other hand, an odd number is that number that is not divisible by 2. Right. So the way to check for an even number, we make use of the modulus operator. All right. So remember what we said. In case you want to check if a number is divisible by 2, you talk of, for instance, the number is 10. Make use of the modulus operator. Then we have 2. All right. So if you execute this, you are supposed to get the remainder. Okay, that is the remainder of what you get when you divide what we have here by 2. All right. So for instance, if we talk about 11 here, if you divide 11 by 2, you'll get a remainder of 1. All right. So this is the concept that we are going to apply when checking for the divisibility test. So for us to say that a number is divisible by 2, then the answer to this should always be 0. And that tells us that that number is divisible by 2. All right. So by making use of the conditional statements, we are going to talk of if. All right. So we are going to check if num, that is the number that comes in here, or modulus, make use of the modulus operator, and 2. So we are going to check, is this equals to 0? If whatever we have here is equals to 0, then that simply means that this number is an even number. So we can proceed and print that number is an even, or this is an even number. And again, we can pass in this number here. Remember how we said that we can do that? Is an even number. So in here, I'll pass in num. All right, but remember, we also need to pass in f there to format that string, the strings in here. All right. Then, in case it's not an even number, then it automatically becomes an odd number. So we just need to pass in the else statement here, then proceed to print that this is an odd number. Odd number. All right. So if I execute this, we have all the questions here, so don't worry. All right. So if I execute this, I have Python 3. Then we have that. So enter a number. I'll enter 34. All right. So that's an even number. Execute it again. Enter 45. That's an odd number. Execute it again. Enter 90. that's an even number. All right, so it should be as easy as that. All right, so let's look at number 2 here. This is talking about print first 10 prime numbers. All right, so create a script that prints the first 10 prime numbers. All right, it's an interesting one here. So the first thing is to first understand what a prime number is. Without a clear understanding of what a prime number is, then you are most likely not going to solve this question right. All right, so a prime number. This is a number that is only divisible by 1 and itself. So if we can give examples, basically prime numbers start from 2. So if you look at 2, it's divisible by 1 and itself. There is no other divisor of 2. Okay, look at 3. Okay, you can only divide 3 by 1 and itself. Okay, then look at 4 is not there, so because 4 again it's divisible by 1, 2 and itself, so it's not a prime number. Then how about 5? Okay, 5 again is a prime number. All right, and so on and so on. So we are supposed to come up with a Python script that will give us the first 10 prime numbers. All right, so in here we need to start to define some variables here, right? One of them is the count. So this count will help us to count the number of prime numbers that we have. Okay, because our script will be generating the prime numbers. So as we continue generating, we need to stop generating the prime numbers once this count gets to 10, because that is as the question instructs. So we need 10 prime numbers. All right, so we are starting to count from 0. All right, then the starting number, so we can have the starting number as 2. So we can just call it num2. Num is equals to 2. We also need a variable that will comprise of an empty list. So this empty list is the one that will hold the prime numbers that will be generated. Okay, so we can call them prime numbers. All right, so we define an empty list. Okay, hoping that we are now able to look at a question and see where an empty list comes in. All right, we have used it a number of times. All right, so with these 3 variables in place, we can now proceed and start writing our script that will help us generate the 10 prime numbers. All right, so one, we are going to start with a while loop. All right, and we said that a while loop will continue executing as long as the condition remains true. Okay, once the set conditions changes to false, the loop terminates. All right, so we are going to execute whatever is below the while loop as long as the count is less than 10. All right. All right, so let us see if we are going to adjust this 10 or it should remain as 10, because remember we need 10 prime numbers. All right, so for now let's start with 10. All right, then we are now going to make use of a for loop. Okay, so in this for loop we are going to define a range, so that in each and every iteration we are going to have a new range. So let's do this. So we are going to talk about for I in, we define a range here. Okay, and this range, remember we said that a range has a starting point and an end point. All right, a starting number and an ending number. So our range will start from 2 and end with number. Which number? We defined a number here, and as we said, this number will keep on changing. All right, so in each and every iteration we are going to remember we said that prime numbers start from 2. Okay, so we are going to supply a range of numbers starting from 2. Let me have this. So we are going to start from 2. That is, we pass in 2 here. Okay, do the necessary checks to check if that is actually a prime number or not. Then move to 3, 4, 5, and all that. So in these numbers that are coming in here, we haven't tested them yet. Okay, so we are just passing in all the numbers in the series from 2, 3, 4 up to a point where we are going to get a count of 10 prime numbers. All right, so we are talking about for I in range, and we are starting from 2. Then in the first iteration we have number 2. All right, so this will be a range of 2 to 2. All right, then we have this. Okay, so from this group we want to check if a number, basically let me pull this one here. So let me have list. We have a range. The first iteration will have that. Okay, so in short, the first iteration will not have any elements. All right, so in the second iteration we will have 2 and 3. All right, so these 2 and 3, or rather these 2, because we will have this range, but this range yields 2. So we are going to check if this 2 is divisible uh, by any number. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to check if 2, or rather let me have this. Okay, this is, we can define num here. Num is equals to 2. So we are going to check if that number is divisible by the iteration. So we are going to subject this number to the iterations of the entries in here. All right, so let us see how it's gonna happen. So we are going to talk about if we have num, all right, modulus I, okay, is equals to 0. Okay, so our number here, back here, let us think of, we have a range between 3 and 10. All right, just a range. So looking at what we have here, we want to iterate through the numbers in here. Okay, so as we iterate, we want to check if we are taking 10, we are taking this 10 and trying to divide by each of the numbers before it. All right, so anytime we get a number that divides 10, then we need to break, because that is not a prime number. All right, I hope you got that clear. So if number, and that is the number here, the maximum number in the range, has any divisor, any of the numbers before it is able to divide it without leaving a remainder, then we just need to break from that. We don't need that because that is not a prime number. Okay, so again, we are going to have an else statement here, which will now capture the prime numbers. Okay, so if it's not a prime number, it breaks and just continues continues with the loop. All right, then in here we need to do something. Okay, so we need to have prime numbers. We need to make use of append, the append method. And what are we appending? We are appending num. Okay, so this is the num that has passed this test. It has proven that none of the numbers before it is able to divide it. All right, so we append it there, and then we ensure that we increase count by 1. Remember what we said? We can have count is equals to count plus 1. But then we said we have a shorthand method. We do have count plus equals 1. So we don't need this. So we should make use of this. So remember, why are we doing this? To ensure that at some point this loop comes to an end. All right. Then finally, we just need to print our prime numbers. Print prime numbers. Is it prime number? All right, that's okay. So let us execute and see. All right, so we didn't get it right. Let me see, because okay, let me see where we have gotten it wrong. We need to do something here. So in here we have adjusted the count, which is okay. Then we need to adjust this number. All right, remember this one is just adjusting the count, but number 2 will always remain as number 2 from the block of code that we have here. Okay, so what we need to do is that we need to adjust these two, because remember we said we want to have a series of numbers starting from 2. So after each and every iteration we need to increase these two to the next number, so that we also subject that number to our test here to see if it is a prime number. So what we do is that we have number here, we add 1 plus equals 1. And why are we doing it outside this loop? Because we are doing it outside this, because in each and every iteration, regardless of whether the number that was previously tested was a prime number or not, we need to adjust this number so that we go to the next number, so that we can have a new range of numbers to test. All right, so I believe this should solve that. All right, so at least for now we get some different numbers. All right, so let me remove that and append. Then I proceed to print the prime numbers. All right, I believe this is what we wanted. 2, 3, and all that. So basically, if you check on these numbers, I believe they do not have any other divisor apart from 1 and itself. Okay, so that's simply how to get a prime number. It's a combination of quite a number of concepts. Number 3. So we have number 3 here that requires us to develop a script that determines whether a student has passed or failed an exam. And this is based on their score. Then assume the passing mark is 50. All right, this should be an easy one. All right, so let's make it a little bit fun. Let us ask for the student score. And remember, okay, let me first of all do this. So we have integer, then we pass in input, get the student marks. All right, so that's the student marks. So remember, now that we are getting the student score based on the user input, remember we can also define the score to be, just a static score here. All right, so either way, the question does not tell us that this score must come from the user, because the source of the data, it could come from the user, it could come from say an Excel or a CSV, it could come from the database. So in here we are kind of defining the source of the data. All right, so in this case we can make use of the input, all right, or just make use of a static figure as we have here. All right, so let's get it from the student. So regardless of where you get the data, as long as you assign it to a variable and it is either an integer or a float, then the rest of the thing should follow. All right, so we are simply going to check if score is greater or equals to 50. Remember 50 is the pass mark. Then we can just proceed and print that you have passed. All right, or just any other message that you would want to give these candidates. All right, then of course in here we said that for you to know if you will need an elif statement, it will depend with the number of situation or scenarios that you have. Okay, looking at the question, it just tells us to advise if a student passed or failed. So in that case, we just have two scenarios, a student who passed and one who failed. And of course, each student must have some marks, because if we start considering a scenario whereby a student did not sit for an exam and another one sat and all that, then we are going to have more scenarios. And that's where the if comes into picture. But in this case, we just have two cases. A student scored some marks, so we need to tell them whether they passed or failed. Okay, and the pass mark is 50. So in here, we have checked if the score is at least 50, then tell them that they passed. Else, just tell them that they failed the exam. You failed the exam, or just any other message. So should be as simple as that. So let us give it a test here. Enter your marks. This one decided to score 45, you failed. Another one decided to score 90, you passed. So, and then if we pass in say 49, that's a fail. Pass in 50, that's a pass. So it's as simple as that. All right, so in here we need to create another program that categorizes a given temperature as hot, moderate, or cold based on user defined threshold. All right, so again, this is another kind of open questions, and it's for us to define these thresholds. All right, and I don't want us to be so keen on maybe the thresholds that I define, because in case you attempted this, you might have defined different thresholds. All right, so for hot, we have moderate, and we also have cold. So hot, we can talk of hot being, do we talk about some 40 degrees? Should be greater or equals to 40. So at least 40 degrees, we can consider that as hot. All right. Then when it comes to moderate, how about if we say from 20? So this should be okay. So we can have 20 here, and this 20, the relationship between 20 and moderate. So basically moderate should be greater or equals to 20, but then less than, it should be less than 40. So basically, again, when it comes to cold, we can talk of cold being anything below 20. I think this is good enough. All right, so let us now put this in form of code. All right, so again, I said you need to know the source of this data. Okay, so let us just define temperature here. In this case, we can just, instead of getting it from the user, let us start with just define some 17 degrees here. All right, and of course, don't complicate your data. Don't start having 17 trying to add the degrees Celsius. So just have 17. All right, once we have the temperature there, then we can check if temperature, so if this temperature is greater or equals to, okay, so in case the temperature is 40 and above, then we should talk of hot. Let us just have hot. All right, so again, in here we have elif. Remember, we said it's a question that will give you on the number of scenarios that you have. So in here we have seen that we have some 3 scenarios, and when we have 3 scenarios, that is where the elif statement comes in. All right, so elif, then so in here we need to have something that will give us this, and I believe there are some two ways to represent this. So let me share with you the first one. So we can talk of elif temperature. All right, it should be greater or equals to 20 based on this statement here, this part here. So for it to be, remember, we are working on the moderate block. So the moderate block is a range between 20 and 40. Okay, and of course, so that basically means that the temperature needs to be at least 20. All right, then we need to have something here, either an and or or. All right, so for this to hold, then it must be within, it must be greater than 20 but less than 40. So we need to make use of the and operator. All right, then temperature should be less than 40. All right, then we need to print something. This is moderate, and finally we just have else. We don't need to do any other check. We just need to print cold. So let us subject this program to some test and see how it behaves. So this is cold. Remember, it's below 20. So how about 20? All right, that is moderate. Reason being, it is between 20 and 40. Remember, moderate takes in temperatures starting from 20 to something less than 40, even if it's 39.999. All right, so that is correct. Then let's make use of 40. Let's see where 40 falls in. All right, that is hot because again it is equal to the temperature. Remember, the first check was checking if the temperature is equals or greater than 40. All right, so final test, we can talk about, how about 39. Let me see, 39.9. All right, that still falls under this block here. All right, so again, that is simply how you are expected to approach that problem. So instead of making use of the AND operator here, remember in our question here, we mentioned something that moderate is in between 20 and 40. So we can do the same here. Instead of mentioning temperature twice, we can do this. So we can have just like we have it here. We can mention it that way. So 20 less or equals to temperature, and again less than 40. This as well should give us the expected output. So if we test this, we have 39.9. That's moderate. If we move to 40, that should be hot. If we move to 20, that as well should be moderate. If we move to 10, I think that should give us cold. All right, so these as well holds. All right, so on to the next question here. We have another question here that requires us to get the sum of numbers in a range. All right, and you just need to write a Python program that uses a for loop to calculate the sum of numbers in a given range. So in here, we can get the range from the user or define the range for ourselves. All right, so let me talk of start. Start is equals to 0. Then the end is equals to 10. So that we can have the range with start and end, that is 0 and 10. All right, then we can have the sum. So we need to define the sum, a variable that will give us the sum. So we can have the total, and for now this is 0 because we haven't added anything. So in case, for instance, we want to get the range of 0 to 10. Remember, as we are mentioning it, 0 to 10 as a range, that will be 0 to 9. Hope we remember that. By mentioning the range as it appears, for instance, if I talk about print the range of start to end. If I print that and I have to convert it to a list so that I get the element, if I execute that, I get 0 to 9. Okay, so in that case, if I want to, whenever I say the start and end, but I actually want to get, say, 0 to 10 in this case, then I need to add 1. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So I need to have that end plus 1 so that the range that we have comprises of all the elements in the start and end. All right. Okay, so let's now proceed. So we are going to have for I in the range. So this is the range that we are going to make use of. All right, so the range with the starting point and the ending point. But then we said that if you define the range as we have here, it will be -1, the ending number. So to ensure that we have this included, we just have +1. Okay, then we can then proceed to, let's just print I here so that we appreciate what we are going to do next. All right, so we have done a for loop on the given range and we see these numbers. So basically this question requires us to get the sum of these numbers. All right, so instead of printing, we are going to increase this total by the element within this range. So in the first iteration, we are going to have total plus. So it starts from 0. So in the first iteration, it will have total plus 0. Okay. In the second iteration, we will have total plus 1. And because total was 0, we now have total as 1. Again, total plus 2, that is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 until the elements of this range have been exhausted. All right. All right. So we need to do this. Remember, I think we have seen this concept in our some of our previous examples. So we have total is equals to total plus 1. I will keep on mentioning this, but then still mention that we have a shorthand method. All right. So be sure to just appreciate that we have this one, and the shorthand method is plus equals I. All right. So let us see if that behaves. All right. So in here we need to print total, the total. All right. So we get that is equals to 55. All right. The easiest way to prove that, we can have this and get the sum. I'm not sure this is gonna give us what you want. Okay, I need to print this. All right, so in case you iterate through this and add the elements within this range, you are going to get 55. So we have proven, this was just a proof that this is correct. All right, so this is actually not part of the script. So this is the script, and of course, in case you do want to adjust this range to maybe 100, just have to ensure that you have 100. Of course, it will have the range will start from 0 to 101 as we are stating it, but the element will be 0 to 100 based on how we defined it here. All right. That gives 50, 50. So on to number 6. We have number 6 here. All right. So number 6 says that we are talking about iterating through a dictionary of students. So create a script that iterates through a dictionary of student names and their corresponding grades. Then display a message for each student's performance. All right. So, okay, so in here, we do not need to struggle coming up with a dictionary. We have been given that here, and we are expected to have such an output. All right, so let us see. Aris had 85, scored 85 marks. Basically, this is just a sample output. So we can define our grading system. So let's forget about what we have here and define our grading system. So we can talk about, let me talk about, say, 80 being excellent. And of course, it's 80 and above. All right, 80 plus. Okay, then 65 and 7 and 80. Can we tell them it's a good job? Okay, then 50 and 65, good. Below 50, keep trying. All right, so again, I haven't defined them so well, but just to mention what they stand for, in here we have 80 and above, excellent. All right, so good job is for one who scored 65 marks and above, but of course above has a cap of up to 79 because 80 will be taken care of here. So in here, let us just have it at 80 here. Okay, then but we know that 80 will be taken care of here. All right, then when it comes to good, they start from 50 marks to below 65. All right, then of course anyone who has below 50, that is anything below 50, so 50 will be taken care of here. All right, so based on that, then we can be able to come up with a program that is able to analyze the student score and return the student's grading. All right, so remember how we did a for loop for a dictionary? So we have the name and we have the grade. All right, and maybe the question would be, how significant are these? So maybe based on the question or looking at the data that we have, this is a name, this is a grade. Okay, so it does not necessarily need to be a grade, but it can be a score or a mark. So these are just variable names, and we also mentioned some rules about coming up with variable names. They at least need to make sense so that you are not taken out of context. So in this case, it would not be an ideal thing to use I or some of those one letter variable names. So in this case, we can define them as they are. So for name, comma, grade, in, so we mentioned the name of the dictionary, but then dot items. All right. So we can proceed and print the name and the grade. Grade. But then, okay. For now, let me show you something. All right, so for now we just want to see if we are able to kind of extract the key value in our dictionary. All right, so if we do that, we are able to get hold of those students alongside their marks. All right, so since we have seen that we can't be able to get hold of the name and the grade. How about if we do an if check here? So we check if the grade is greater or equals to 80, then we need to print something. So in this case, we can print, let me see. So, okay, so we can print the name and this comment here. So we can have the name, okay, and the comment. So since we said if it's 80 and above, then we have excellent. All right, then we can have an elif. Again, remember we said the decision to make use of an elif depends on the number of scenarios that we have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that tells you that you need to make use of the elif statements. All right, so again, if the grade, so in this case we are talking about the grade should be greater or equals to 65. All right, so again, we might not need to do the other check because it will be taken care of by this block. All right, so we then proceed to print. We are going to print the same but adjust the message slightly. So we have that instead of excellent, we have good job. All right, then the other block is we are going to check if grade, we are here, is greater or equals to 50, then let's print something. So we are basically printing the same but just changing the comment here. Then anything else, so this will only evaluate to true if the grade is at least 50. So anything below that, we can print it here. Keep trying. All right, so let us see how this goes. All right, so see, okay, again, let me just print the student here. Is it students? All right, so see, we have Aris scored 85. She got an excellent here. All right, alternatively, I can also add the marks here, or what we are calling grade in this case. I can also add the grade and have that to make it easier. For now, I don't need that. All right, so see, R is scored 85, and that is excellent based on our definition here. Bob scored 72, then 72 falls under this bracket here. That is good job. Charlie scored a 90, and 90 is excellent. It's above the 80, or it is at least 80, so that it was evaluated in this block. Then this one scored 45, and that happens to be below 50. All right, and of course it's keep trying. So again, that is what was expected of us in that question.